everyone, I'm Catherine with Free Tours by Foot, and today I'm going to be helping you learn how to navigate the New York City subway system. The New York City subway system, if you're a first-time visitor to New York City, can seem very, very daunting, but there is no reason to be afraid of using the subway. It's actually not that complicated once you know a few tips, and it is by far one of the best and cheapest ways to get around New York City.
Before we start, we will put a link in this video's description to our blog post on this very subject, where we go into more detail on the following tips to use the New York City subway. There, you will also find information on a few of our walking tours, like our half-day downtown tour, that also use the subway to help transport us from neighborhood to neighborhood. These tours are great opportunities to have a local New Yorker accompany you on your first subway rides. And lastly, we will also put a link to our blog and video on buying a New York City subway Metro card.
The first thing you're going to want to do if you want to use the New York City subway on your visit here is you're going to want to make friends with the subway map. So there is a big map of the New York City subway system in every single subway station in this city. So don't be embarrassed if you need to spend several minutes standing there studying the map, looking at it. Locals have to do it too from time to time. It's actually a great thing to be able to have with you while you're traveling around New York City. You can either download one to your phone, or you can go to any subway station that has an information booth that is staffed by an attendant and just ask them if they can give you a paper subway map. And that way you'll have it with you no matter where you are, no matter where you end up on your adventures in New York City, and you can take that map out and figure out how to get to your next point.
You also have the option of using a subway app to help you navigate. Some apps have a cost, but several are free, and many of the maps can be used offline without data or Wi-Fi, which can be particularly helpful if you're traveling internationally without a phone plan. For apps that do need some kind of service, most New York City subway stations have free Wi-Fi now. The main benefits of subway apps are generally that they have good estimated times for subway arrivals and detailed point-to-point instructions on how to get to your destination. You can even input your preferences for directions, such as more walking but fewer transfers. For example, if you want to travel from Times Square to the Hudson Yards, you can input your starting and ending points into the app, set your preferences, and then get detailed directions along with departure times for trains.
So the next thing you're going to want to do is select which specific train you are going to be taking. And when I say that, I mean which specific letter or number train. We don't actually usually refer to colors for different trains in New York, even though they are color-coded on the map. And the reason for that is that the different trains, the different letters and numbers usually end up going different spots. For example, the A, C, and E trains are all blue on the map, and for a little while they actually run along the same route in Manhattan, but eventually they all split off and they end up in different places. So you do want to be very, very specific when you're choosing a train. Oftentimes, different numbers or letters on the same color line are local versus express trains, which brings me to our next point. Figure out if you're trying to go local or trying to go express. This is actually the #1 mistake we see visitors make when they're using the subway for the first time, is choosing an express versus a local train and seeing their stop flying by as they go on past it. So it's actually pretty easy to tell which is which on the map. The local stations are marked with a black dot, and the express stations are marked by a white dot. So when you're looking, express trains will only stop at the white dots. Local trains will stop at both. They will stop at the local black dot stations. They will also stop at the white dot stations. So when we say local versus express, that's what we mean. Next, you want to figure out if you are going uptown versus downtown. This is another thing that can throw people a little bit if they're not familiar with our subway system. Uptown versus downtown in Manhattan anyway, really generally just means north versus south. We say uptown instead of north, we say downtown instead of south. But you do want to be careful with uptown versus downtown, not just so that you make sure you go in the right direction, but actually even when you're going into a subway entrance. Now, if you're in a big station or usually an express station, you can cross between uptown and downtown platforms without going above ground and then paying again. But on some smaller local stations, the actual uptown versus downtown entrances can be completely separate entrances on different sides of the street. So you just want to check. It will be right on the sign above the subway stairs if it is specifically an uptown versus a downtown platform. The next thing you're going to want to do is pick which specific station you are going to. This is another thing to be careful of, because it's very common for there to be more than one station with exactly the same name. Canal Street sounds like an easy destination, but there are multiple stations called Canal Street, all on different lines. So you want to really look at the map and figure out which Canal Street station you're trying to go to. The next thing you'll want to look out for as you're heading towards an entrance is you may see either green or red globes above the entrance. A green globe means that that station and that entrance is open 24 hours a day. Our subway runs 24 hours a day. A red globe may mean that that particular entrance is not accessible 24 hours a day. Generally, it would mean not accessible later in the evening after the evening rush hour. Those red globes are also supposed to mean exit only stairs, but 99% of New Yorkers, and most visitors actually, completely ignore that. So really it just means accessibility 24 hours a day or not. It's becoming less and less common to even have a red globe entrance, so you may not even see this while you're here in New York City using the subway. Another thing you want to look out for is if you are in a position of thinking you need to transfer between different subway lines and they look like they don't connect with a common station, check and see if they are connected with a pedestrian tunnel. And you can save yourself having to go above ground, walk, and then pay another fare. Those pedestrian tunnels are marked by a black line on the subway map. So if you see a black line running between two different subway stops on two different lines, that's indicating a pedestrian tunnel. So check and see if there is one for the switch that you need to make. And lastly, if all else fails, just ask somebody. New Yorkers are actually really friendly and always very, very willing to help out. So if you are not completely sure of the subway you need to take, the station you want to exit at, or whether you're on a local or an express, just ask somebody. A lot of stations are staffed, so you can always ask an actual MTA attendant. But if you don't see an MTA attendant, just ask a New Yorker on the platform and they will help you out.
One tip I forgot to mention is a very insider tip. If you aren't sure about where a train is heading, look for the white and black zebra-striped panel on the platform. They're usually located halfway down the station. A quirky thing about the New York City subway is that all conductors of the subway trains must point to these zebra stripes every time they stop at a station as a safety precaution. The board lets them know that all subway cars are in the station. If you're standing by the sign, then you are assured to also be standing in front of the conductor, who is more than likely going to greet you with a smile and answer your question.
I hope this convinces you to take a try with the New York City subway. Like I said, it really is one of the best ways to get around as a visitor. It's what most locals use to get around, and it's also a great way to see the city with real New Yorkers and kind of do as the locals do. So give it a try, and we'll see you on your next trip to New York.